All right then. Well, listen, this is Down to the River, the radio show, and this is your host Scott Roos on the line with Australian bluesman Lloyd Spiegel. Man, how are you doing today, good sir?
I am doing absolutely fabulously. It's a beautiful day in Alberta where I am right now, and having a ball already. I'm only 2 days into the tour, and everything's going off so far without a hitch.
Well, and that's what I was gonna say now. Like you're kicking off a tour for a recently released record. It's called Cut and Run. Your 10th record, if I did the math correctly. But I mean, you've chosen to kind of open the tour for this record and the touring cycle in Canada. I thought that was a bit of an interesting choice.
Yeah, well, it actually turned out that I had kind of backflipped on myself and toured the last album in Canada as the last the country on the 12 country tour. So this one I thought we'll go reverse and see how it goes. I wrote most of the album in Canada on my last trip, so it made sense to start here. And so far, everybody's taken to it quite well.
Yeah, well, now I would imagine so. Of course, I mean, I've had a chance to listen to the record, and I think, there's a bit of a different feel to this one. If I'm thinking about maybe your previous two efforts, but from what I understand now, this whole thing is a sort of part of a trilogy. Like, is that a trilogy thematically, a trilogy musically? How does this work, Lloyd?
I was going through a pretty hard stage in my life over the last 3 years, and I've done 3 albums in that time. And I guess you write the songs not really thinking too hard about what they are at that moment. But I was at the peak of my career, but I was at my lowest place as a person. And so I'd be frantically writing one album while I was touring the previous album. So each album I found started to answer the last one. Yeah. This is the show we're doing for this one, and this is the album I'm writing for the next one. And when I sat back and listened to Cut and Run when it was finished, I realized it was much more motivational, much more positive, and there was, I guess, a lot less of these attacks on myself, and I've probably allowed myself to be comfortable with who I am and where I am in my life, and I must say it feels pretty good to be putting that out there. I've got fans that have been watching me since I was 10 years old, so they deserve my honesty, and I love giving them that honesty and letting them take that ride with me.
Well, and I do want to talk about your 30-year career in the music industry, just in a moment here. But I mean, just myself, being a bit of an armchair musician as well. I mean, just thinking about this record, Cut and Run, I mean, which track on the record did you find the most difficult personally to write then, Lloyd?
There's a song called Run on the album, which is a straight acoustic piece. Right. That I sing, and it really sums up the last few years for me. This trap that I fell into, where my career became who I was, not just what I do. And we always think as blues artists that maybe that's the cool thing to do. That it's a lifestyle, not just a job. But I really, I've lost a great deal through it, and I've sacrificed just about everything else in my life from that. And so, Run was about that game of what if we all play in our head. What if I had taken a different path, and what if I chose to do that now? How would that affect everyone around me? And so that song it was easy to write because I was doing it quite subconsciously, I must admit. But
sure.
Now, as I perform it, in fact, last night I performed it live for the very first time, and I found it quite difficult. It's an emotional roller coaster, and it's the very, very end of it. So, but at the same time, there's a great joy in being able to be my own therapist.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, like, as an artist and a musician, I mean, I'm sure full well that there's a certain amount of catharsis that you can capture in a record, and it's a snapshot of your life. I mean, is Run sort of the most cathartic song on this record as well, then?
Absolutely. And, I mean, the title itself, Cut and Run, is a reference to the way that I live my life, which is I hit cities, I play, and I leave. And I've been to New York 5 times and never seen the Statue of Liberty, for crying out loud. So this is the kind of world I've created for myself. And so I have, through this album, I've actually started to realize these things in my life and starting to take a little bit more time to stop and smell the roses, and I was at the Badlands today and went down to Dinosaur Park and I was up in the Rockies 2 days ago, taking photographs and sitting on a kayak. So, you have an opportunity when you travel the way that I do to see wonders of the world, to see to meet people and to really connect. And I think I'd lost that for a little bit of time and kind of fell too deep into what I was doing rather than the real mission here, which is to entertain people and make people happy.
Yeah, like, I mean, I was just thinking as you said that now, I mean, so many artists over the years of all, levels of, popularity, I suppose have had stories at one time or another where they've said they don't know what town they're in at any given time, and then you see clips on YouTube and stuff like that of artists, messing up what city they're in. They're in Saskatoon, and they're like, Prince Albert, how are you doing? I mean, do you have you had moments like that then over the years?
I certainly have moments where I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow. And especially when I'm traveling with a great road manager like I am in Canada, quite often I don't know where the next show is.
Yeah.
I do think that life can become one long gig, and so the thing that's happening in town each night is that you're there. And so you can become a little self-centered in that way. And I certainly know from my touring in Australia,
Sure.
obviously where I'm a lot better known, you can kind of become a little bit jaded with that kind of thing. And part of the beauty of traveling, for example, to this part of the country where I am, I've never been west of Toronto before. So,
Oh, wow.
So it's super exciting for me because I feel like I'm in a whole different place. Nobody's ever heard of me, and there's an excitement that comes with it, and a real desire to impress that audience, a real desire to win people over. Whereas in places like Japan or Australia or New Zealand, I feel there's this expectation on me to be bigger and better every time.
Sure.
Here I can really relax and actually give my most honest kind of performance.
Yeah. Well, now I was gonna say, like, I mean, of course, you're in Saskatchewan next week, I think.
Yes.
So I mean, like, given the fact that you're, from the quote unquote land down under, I mean, what do you know about Saskatchewan? I mean, when you're going to an unfamiliar place, a place that you've never really toured before, I mean, do you do any kind of research? Like,
Usually in the car on the way there, I'll be frantically Googling places to go. Okay, so this seems a bit cheesy. I have a passion for big things. Like today, I saw the world's largest teepee, and I see them all over the world. And it's a life goal to see as many of them as possible. So I start Googling big things. That's the first thing I do. Then I look for the best cup of coffee in town. And one of the things I like to do in any city I go to or any town is sit in the favorite local coffee place and just people watch for a few hours.
Yeah.
To get a sense of the people who are there, because those people may be at the concert as well, but at the concert, there's we're not on an even playing field.
That's
because I've got a
true.
microphone and I'm there kind of in work mode in a sense, just watching locals really, and the similarities and the differences between people is what strikes me. Canadians and Australians, of course, have a really similar sense of humor, which I really love, and I can connect to. There's this beautiful ability Canadians have to lean into their own cliches and make a little fun of themselves.
Yeah.
And Australians are very good at that too. So I find that really amusing, and I love starting conversations with local people just in coffee houses. So if anybody wants to get onto my website and email me the best coffee place in Prince Albert, that would be fantastic.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, not a bad plan. I mean, I think you've come to value these types of relationships over the years, as you get longer in tooth career-wise, right? I mean, you're getting out there and you're trying to meet more people and connect on an even playing field, it sounds like.
Oh, absolutely. And at the end of the day, that's the job, isn't it? I'm social work.
Yeah.
I'm there to make people happy. I think too many people put this delusion of grandeur on top of playing music, that it's this world-changing thing. And maybe it can be, but for me, I know my place. I'm not a rock star, and I probably never will be. It's about place to place and people and that amazing connection that when you leave this planet, and it's getting a little philosophical, you want to know you've given it a pretty good nudge and made some people smile.
Yeah. No, and I wouldn't argue with that. Let's just rewind this whole thing a little bit though here, Lloyd. Forgive the quote unquote cliche, but when I think of Australia, I'm thinking of koalas, crocodiles, and kangaroos. The blues doesn't necessarily pop into my brain right off.
Sure.
And I think of the song, we come from a land down under. Like all of
Yes.
this, stereotypical Australian stuff. But from what I understand now, if we dial your career back to its genesis, you come from quite a blues background, right? You didn't really understand that there was anything beyond the blues when you first started playing. Am I right?
That's right. My father was the founder of the Melbourne Blues Society when I was a very small child. So all the blues musicians that were travelling through Australia would stay at our house, and there was a man named Dutch Childers who was really our king of blues. He brought blues, funny enough, from Holland to Australia.
Wow.
The Dutch have a very, very strong blues scene because they were one of the first countries to tour African American blues artists, and so he came to Australia as a teenager, already a blues musician, and by the time he was in his 50s, he was living in my parents' backyard in a bungalow. So
wow.
I just assumed everybody had an old blues man in the backyard, and that was perfectly normal. And I would be shocked to find that nobody else had a blues man in the backyard, and that they were listening to different music to me. I honestly didn't know there was anything other than that. And look, if you introduce a young child to blues music, they will probably love it for life, simply because it's an unoffensive, highly approachable, easy to follow and easy to play genre of music that really reaches to the core of what we're all about. It's a fundamental stepping stone to every genre that came after it. So there's a beat that, while it may not belong to Australians or Canadians or the Dutch, it is something that's in all of us, and I think it really does belong to the world now. And in that way, I just grew up luckily having that cultivated in my life.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned the fact that you've had some, legendary blues artists, at your doorstep, and, just reading through your bio, you've played and backed up some pretty big names as well. And your career kind of took off really early. Like, at the age of 16, you were out and kind of trying to make a go of it, right? That's crazy. I don't know if I had a 16-year-old, if I would be encouraging them out the door regardless of talent.
Well, I was touring in Australia from kind of age 11 and playing with local blues bands. And then when I was 16, I was invited to join Brownie McGee's band, who was a great American blues legend. And my father had a tough call to make, but the call that he ultimately made was to put me on a plane to Oakland, California to see Brownie McGee. And from there, I really cut my teeth, I think, as a solo artist, and learnt, it's really wonderful to hang out with those old blues legends, simply to remind yourself of how far you have to go.
Yeah.
And also that, when you're dealing with the real deal blues musicians, the guys who really made it what it is today, you start to see that the key is not in relishing the old and trying really hard to be traditional, but to actually push the boundaries, which is, for their time, what those guys were doing. So I've always had a real passion for pushing the boundaries of where blues music sits, and challenging the stereotypes of it, challenging, what the traditionalists think we should be doing with it, because I don't want the entire worldwide blues scene to appear to be a Civil War reenactment where everybody's dressing the part, but not really changing anything. So it's a form that needs to advance and continue to grow.
Yeah, and I definitely wouldn't disagree with that. And I think just having listened to, a number of your records now, they're very diverse musically. But I think at the same time, though, you're definitely wearing the influences on the sleeves, right? I think I'm hearing a little bit of Clapton and B.B. King in the mix there, maybe. Are these, guys that are early influences of yours? I'm hearing the slow hand in your fretting hand there.
Well, I think the real balance is to find that place where you're paying tribute to where it came from, and still trying to put your own flavor to something that is now generations old. It's actually very hard to find your own voice in it. So I think if you set out to make yourself unique in the scene, then you're doing your part to have a link in the chain of its evolution. But at all the times, you've always got to remind yourself of where it's from and make sure that you're doing enough to credit that.
Sure, sure. Well, and now given the fact that you've been so immersed in the scene for so long, I mean, like, there seems to be a school of, very, very clean and precise playing that's been coming out lately with guys like Joe Bonamassa. I mean, and even, going back a little further to the great guitar slinger himself, of course, I'm talking about Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean, where's your opinion on guys like that play almost too perfect?
Well, I guess it's a matter of who you are. I think it's about honesty more than anything else. I mean, I'm a fast and frantic kind of guitarist.
Yeah.
My solo show is fast and frantic, but I'm a fast and frantic kind of person. I'm a stress head, and I live pretty hard and fast. So it's kind of who I am. I never set out to be that way. And I think with any of those guys who may come across as clean or precise, as long as that's who they are as people, then they're doing themselves justice. What I find is that within the blues world, it's actually really easy to spot a phony.
Yeah.
To spot someone, I'm not saying those guys are, but to spot people who have kind of taken on a persona and decided that this is the way they're going to play it, it lacks something for me. I mean, a guy like Stevie Ray Vaughan, I think Stevie Ray Vaughan is an unfortunate story in a lot of ways from where I sit, because here we had a player who had all the speed and all the tone and tremendous feel. I mean, he just had feel for days and days.
Yeah.
But so many players who have chosen him as their blueprint have missed out on learning that taste and finding that taste of their own. The thing we love about our favorite guitarist is that you know who it is within 2 bars of the song starting.
That's true.
And so what we really should be taking from them is not their licks, but that attitude of being unique and trying to become one of those players that you can pick a mile away.
Yeah. Well, what's funny, Lloyd, you were talking about your fast and frantic style of play, especially in your solo shows. And of course, these are solo shows that you got coming up on the Canadian prairies. But I mean, hearing some of this stuff that you've recorded, I the first name that bizarrely popped in my head was like Eddie Van Halen. Like you are a very fast and frantic guitar player. It's like you're almost Eddie Van Halen of the blues.
Yeah. And I do a very similar thing with the solo show as well. It just kind of developed over years and years, and I certainly never set out to play quickly. And through my 20s, I was never a quick player. I was much more based in the B.B. King school of guitar. But for some reason, as I started playing more acoustic and touring more solo, I realized that there was something I could bring to the instrument and to the genre that wasn't being done.
Sure.
And I'm certainly not a guitar head. It's a funny thing. I get people assuming that I'm deep into guitars and I sit in guitar stores ogling instruments. And the truth is I feel I'm an entertainer before I'm anything, and I'm a blues artist next and probably a guitarist third.
Yeah.
It just happens to be how it comes out of me. And that may change one day, and I'll just have to go with it.
Sure. So now what are these shows going to look, sound, and feel like as you like, let's say when you come out to our on stage series at the EA Rawlinson Center on Wednesday the 25th. There, I just plugged the gig expertly there. That's what they pay me the big bucks for.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. It's look, the on-stage series in particular is really great because it gives a guy like me who isn't well known in the area and can't fill a theatre to still play in a theatre setting and put my best foot forward.
Yeah.
I love a theatre show because so much of my show is storytelling, and there's a bit of comedy mixed in that allows me to connect with the crowd on a different level. I don't believe you can do it with music alone. So there's going to be a lot of blues, there's going to be a lot of songwriting, and there's going to be a lot of chat and back and forth with the audience, which I really love doing. And I'm trying to deliver a show that you don't need to be a blues fan to enjoy. I think that, people, there's this hilarious thing where people say, I'm not a blues fan. And what I tend to think that means is I don't know what blues is, but I've got an idea, and it's not the idea I want. I'm trying to deliver a show that breaks those cliches of blues music and hopefully will entertain just about anybody.
Yeah, and of course there's a bit of a contest, right? I mean, there's a guitar that people could win. How does that work, Lloyd?
Well, yeah, I'm heavily involved with an Australian guitar company, and they build my signature model guitar, and I just thought it would be great fun to give one away on the tour. So I've got one with me, and everywhere, anyone who buys a ticket will be handed a form to fill in and throw into my guitar case. And at the end of the tour, I'll do a Facebook Live and pluck a winner out. And it'll cost me a fortune to send it to them, but it'll be fine.
There you go.
I get great joy out of it. I've got a long history of finishing my tour and giving my guitars to young kids that I meet on the road. So this is just an extension of that, where I can, see the look on someone's face when I hand them a brand new instrument.
Paying it forward, this saying goes, just like, those blues artists when you were a young fella paid it forward to you.
Absolutely, and it's a really important thing. I had a fellow, I was in Medicine Hat last night, and the fellow gave me $20, and I went to hand him a CD, and he said, "No, I don't want the CD. I've already got it. Just give a young kid a CD at your next show."
That's awesome.
So that kind of thing I really loved, and so I'll be definitely doing that, and I'll be making sure it gets back to him that I did that. And but yeah, if you'd like to win a guitar, it's as simple as wandering into the show and filling out a form, throwing it in my guitar case, and you can win it.
Right on, and you'll be fully stocked in the merch department. We'll be able to buy T-shirts and CDs and all of the usual swag, Lloyd.
All of the usual swag. Keeping the vinyls in good form on the flight over was particularly difficult, so I've had to test a bunch of them, but the vinyls are good to go. The CDs are all ready to go. Capos and T-shirts and the whole swag.
Wow.
And let's face it, I don't actually want to bring them home to Australia with me, so the more I can get rid of, the better.
That is a valid point, Lloyd. Well, listen, I don't want to keep you much longer, but I definitely want to say that I've really appreciated your time and the conversation here on Down to the River. I mean, of course, you will literally be coming down to the North Saskatchewan River just in a couple of days, September 25th. The E.A. Rawlinson Centre of the Arts.
I have been looking at photographs of that. I've been looking at photographs of that river.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Today. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful. I'm really looking forward to it. And hopefully, if you can come along to the show, it'd be great to meet you.
Yeah, well, for sure. We've definitely got some plans in the works. Sarah and I have been I've been discussing a few different things. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to it. September 25th. September 25th at the E.A. Rawlinson Centre of the Arts. Lloyd Spiegel on stage in a very unique and a very immersive musical experience. The guy's the total package, and I'm not just saying that, and I just wouldn't toss that around lightly, Lloyd. You are the real deal, my friend.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, you have a good day, sir.
Thanks, mate.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Be well.